Hey, Duncan, how are you today, brother?
I'm good. I'm always good, but I'm particularly good today.
Man, we are excited to have you here, ladies and gentlemen from all around the world. Today, we have our friend Duncan Bhaskaran Brown, and he is going to share some life truths, not just what he was able to achieve or overcome in life, but we're going to break it down to the practical steps of how he did it so you can too, or at least get a catalyst starting point. And then at the end of the episode, we'll have his contact info, maybe a special offer so you can reach out to him, continue the conversation. So, Duncan, at this time, we're privileged to be here. It's season 11. We've been doing this for 5 years, 300 plus episodes, amazing listeners around the world. And if they're trying to decide right now if they're going to listen to your episode or not, if you guarantee them one thing they'll be able to walk away with if they stick with the episode, what is that today?
I'm tempted to say there will be jokes, but on a more serious note, yeah, I will basically lay out my entire system for helping people to change their behaviors, whether that's building the good ones or breaking the bad ones.
Yes, and that is so important. All of us to change a behavior is crucial at every stage of our life because we're always growing and we're always moving forward, hopefully, and we're always refining. So, ladies and gentlemen, after this, Duncan's going to share a bunch of gold bars with us from his life, but he's going to talk about changing behavior specifically as a theme throughout the episode so you can have a better life and be more successful. We're going to take a quick affiliate break and then Duncan will be right back.
Because of your overwhelming support, our 1488 My Pillow has been one of the biggest sales in My Pillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard My Pillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use My Pillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing. Including my classic standard My Pillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic My Pillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you love that affiliate commercial and shop. They support us. They support America. They support you and your family. Take advantage of the special offers and helps keep our podcast on the air, keeps money in your wallet and better goods in your home. So, Duncan, at this time, brother, tell us, everybody has a story. Everybody has an origin. You know, what happened in the past, we don't want to dwell on, but we want to learn from it. So what made Duncan the man he is today?
Well, I was at a party when I was just a little teenager, just a little dunk. Well, actually, I wasn't that much smaller, was I? I was a teenager. And I wanted to go inside because all of the pretty girls were inside, and they were all dancing on the inside, and I was stood on the outside, and I wanted to go in, but I was too scared. I was too nervous, and I wanted to go in, but I didn't know what to do. And then my friend Hank handed me a can of beer. And I drank it and I thought, well, this isn't, it's not up to much, is it? Didn't taste that great. Didn't seem to have much of an effect. But then, I thought, well, I'll have a second one as everybody else is doing it. And about halfway through the second one, I started to feel it in my toes, and then it moved up through my legs, into my stomach, into my shoulders, into my head. And all of a sudden, I was dancing. And I danced my way into that house and I danced with all of the pretty girls. And you know what? It worked. I even ended up kissing that beautiful lady from Form F. It was amazing. The first time I ever drank alcohol, I thought, this is it. All of my Christmases have come at once. It seemed to kind of fill in a lot of gaps. It seemed to solve a lot of my problems. And I thought, that was that. I have sorted this out. It's all good. And I suppose it might have been for a little bit, but time went on. And as time passed, I guess I started drinking a bit more. when I started off, I was, I was drinking on the weekends, just at parties. It was very social. There was always lots of people around and never drinking that much. But the amount I drank started to creep up, and the amount of people that I started to drink with I went down, and I took it to its logical conclusions, and I ended up sitting on my own in my flat drinking 2 bottles of wine every night. And well, like breaking news, that ain't no fun. And I was pretty miserable, and that was when I decided things needed to change, and that is when I began my journey with behavior change.
And at that point, how old were you, Duncan?
Oh, so we have to do a little bit of reverse engineering. I must have been 36.
Okay. So you went 18, 20 years from the time you first tasted alcohol to the time you were like, I need help. This has gone way too
Yeah,
far.
so from I mean, I always like to start at that teenage point because it seems really like when I really started drinking. But actually, my parents would give me a little bit of, sherry or wine or beer with dinner on a Sunday because they thought that, it would teach me to drink responsibly. And they were half right. I mean, it did teach me to drink. I just forgot about the responsible bit. Actually, it was probably more like 25 years, but yeah, certainly from those heady teenage days, it was a good 20 years after I started drinking that I realized it had got too much and things needed to change.
Now, where are your origins too? Just so we go back in your home. Where did you grow up, country wise? Brothers, sisters, mom, dad, family. What was a quick background there?
So I grew up and I still live in a town called Abingdon, which is just outside Oxford in the United Kingdom. So it's a lovely place. It's not a tourist advert or anything, but if you're visiting, Oxford's nice. And yeah, I mean, mum and dad still together, but, very happily married after quite a few years now. I had one brother. I kind of had what most people would think of as a very happy, stable childhood. The only real issue that I had when I was growing up was, well, school. It wasn't really for me. I've thought about it a lot, and I guess the conclusion that I've come to is what a lot of schools they're trying to you know give you the skills that you need to get a job. They're trying to make you a good employee, and that didn't really work on me because I'm unemployable. So it was never really going to work out for us. My teachers wanted one thing, and I wanted a very different thing. And yeah, I mean, I guess I struggled to find anywhere that I could really excel and be myself and be rewarded for who I was, and be accepted for who I was. And that kind of you chuck that into the kind of hormones, nervousness that everybody has around the teenage years, and I think I probably partied a little bit harder than some people.
Yeah. Now, when you were growing up, I grew up in an Italian American family, and there was wine on the table, and it wasn't a big deal, and people knew just don't get drunk. When you were growing up, did any of your family have alcoholism in there, or was this just something that was you tried it, you liked it, and it stuck in your life?
My family drinks in the broadest sense of the word. Some of them drink levels that are kind of questionable, but I don't think any of them would describe themselves as an alcoholic. Yeah, I'm there is a very fine line between drinking with problems and being a problem drinker, and I think some of them are fairly close to that line. But no, I mean, it's not like I grew up in a household that was dominated by that. I mean, everybody drank. That was just kind of the expectation. Everybody did it, and it was very much linked to kind of maturity, sophistication, being a man. If you want to be a proper man, you've got to drink the beer, haven't you? So all of that head junk arrived in my head, courtesy of my family and the media in general.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is because, we have learned behavior. We do have some genetic markers and some propensities that doesn't give us any of us excuse for anything, like, whether it's alcoholism, porn, food addiction, screwing a goat. I don't care what it is. There's no excuse if in genetics, it just might make us more apt to something. So that's why I was just wondering what your background was. So let's go back to your story. So you drink beer and get drunk really for the first time. You're feeling it. You kiss this girl. You think this is great. And then it has like that short up. And then you got that long 18 years of really, this is not helping me in my life. So when you're around that 36-year mark and you decide to make a change, where does your life go from there, Duncan?
Well, I mean, it got a whole lot better, a whole lot quicker. It was brilliant. I mean, you know, I hadn't realized how bad it got. I think, I was tired a lot. Didn't have much energy. My concentration wasn't what it should have been. I wasn't really happy. I was on one level, I was reasonably successful, but I wasn't really enjoying it. And it was only when I stopped drinking that I realized how bad it had got. The my energy improved. I was jumping out of bed. I actually spend a lot less time in bed now, but feel a lot more awake when I get up. And yeah, focus, just the ability to concentrate for long periods of time. That is such a gift. Peace, happiness, joy, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I think one of the things a lot of people don't realize is that alcohol's a depressant, and if you drink enough of it, it does make you quite depressed. Made me pretty miserable, but I hadn't really realized until I stopped doing it, and kind of like took the shackles off my mind, and it was like, oh wow, this is good. So yeah, I mean, think that the benefits of stopping drinking for me were just, it was crazy. It was massive. It is by far the best thing that I've ever done to improve my health, life, well-being, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's universal. I don't know any man, woman, child, any alien that's alcohol long term's ever benefited from. It says in the Bible, give somebody a little wine for their stomach's sake. If somebody's really sad, sometimes it says give them a little bit of wine and get them drunk just to help ease through the pain for like a day, not for an ongoing years, right? So it's alcohol alcohol clouds our judgment, our values, and it leads to bad things every time. So, what are some of
I
the?
mean,
Oh,
sorry,
go
I've met
go.
a lot of people who've stopped drinking, and I've not met anybody who's actually regretted it. They all think their life is so much better now. So
It is exactly, and it's like I love what you said when you were saying it wasn't until I stopped drinking until I realized how bad it got. It's like, the Bible talks about darkness hath blinded our eyes. When we get into sin of any sort, we're blind to it. And when we're in alcohol or any kind of addiction, we don't even see it till it's either too late or until after we thankfully make a decision to quit. So I love that you're like, yeah, once I noticed, I saw how bad I was, right? Um, so for the people out there who are like, well, I drank, but I don't have a problem, say they want to try 30 days or 3 months and get clean. And if I say, why don't you try getting clean for 30 days and 3 months and you just freaking flipped out inside, you probably have a problem, right? But if you think you can take the challenge, Duncan, what are some of the things you saw in your life to help you quit and get clean and get, like you said, you had better clarity of mind, you had more energy, you had more focus. What do you recommend to somebody to get clean?
I think the important thing to realize is that kind of thinking about it, becoming aware of it, that absolutely is the first step. That you can't solve a problem you don't know you have. So I think that is a great measure. If if the idea of living without alcohol kind of makes you nervous, then yeah, it's probably time to sort of think about it and go a little bit further. But you got to realize you have taken the first step. You've started to become aware that it is a problem, and that is huge. So many people, are just bumbling along and they think they're doing all right, and you know, they don't notice how bad it's got. And well, you know, I hung around with a lot of people simply because they were worse than me. It's like, "Oh, I'm not bad. I'm not as bad as Mal. I don't drink as much as him. You know, it's not a real problem, is it?" So just kind of becoming aware of it, and being aware of your own, the amount that you're drinking, and maybe sort of kind of starting to think about some of the effects that it's having. That is such an important first step. Um, it's not the only one. Do you want me to go through the entire system that I use to help people to stop drinking?
Yeah, 100%. This show is all about being inspired by you and then also taking what you did in your life and applying it to our own. So the more practical steps, the better. You're helping people all around the world.
So the first thing, you know, acknowledging that it is an issue, and then kind of try and get some help. There are, you know, a lot of people out there that will help you. That's one of the things I've noticed, and I've worked with people from all different aspects of the sober sphere, people who've stopped using group programs like AA or LifeRing or Smart Recovery, people who've used psychiatrists and counselors to stop drinking, people who've used kind of cognitive reframing, which is what I do, and people who've just done it, you know, on their own with maybe the help of an app or a book or a podcast or something like that. And the one thing that unites them all is they all want to help you. Like basically, as I said earlier, you know, stopping drinking, it's the best thing I've ever done. Of course, I want to help other people to do it. So get some help, and there is plenty out there. Now, the method that I use, it's you could call it cognitive reframing. It's kind of a part of cognitive behavior therapy, which I'm sure your listeners have heard of. It's a very simple idea, and it is that your beliefs drive your actions. So what you do is dictated by, you know, what you believe. And there's a fairly good example that happened in America recently. You had an election, didn't you? And a lot of people went out and voted in that election. And you've got to ask yourself, why did they do that? You know, why go to all of that trouble? You've got to drive to the polling station, you've got to register yourself, all of that. Why do they go to that trouble? It's simply because they believe that voting is important. They believe that democracy is the best way to run a country, and that if we don't take part in democracy, then it doesn't work. So it is the belief that drives those actions. And it's exactly the same with drinking. What you believe about alcohol is very highly correlated to the amount you drink. And that obviously isn't my belief. That's actually, you know, what all of the science says. So you've got to start off by getting to grips with what you believe. Now, some of the things that I hear all of the time is people believe it helps them to socialize. It believes it makes them creative. It believes that it helps them to reduce their stress. It believes that, you know, they believe it helps them to have fun. So there's all of those kind of things, and you've got to sort of start off by identifying those beliefs, bringing them out into the open, because normally they're just kind of sitting under there. You're thinking, oh, I'm stressed, I'll have something to drink. So it's the belief that's driving the action. So you've got to identify it, get it out into the open, and then you've got to start examining it. And you've got to ask a couple of questions. The first being, is it true? Now, just one example, you know, does alcohol help you deal with stress? Very, very commonly held belief. Alcohol relaxes me, it helps me deal with stress. Okay, is that true? So I'm sure all of your listeners have heard of cortisol. It's the stress hormone. I'm sure they all know that. And so if alcohol helped you to deal with stress, it would reduce your cortisol levels, wouldn't it? It would reduce the stress markers in your body. Alcohol actually increases those stress markers. It increases your cortisol level. So every unit of alcohol you drink increases your cortisol by 3%. So as a way of reducing your stress, not working, is it? So you know, just looking at that one little aspect, asking yourself whether it's true, but going beyond that, you know, asking yourself whether it's serving you. Is the alcohol you drink helping you become the person you want to be? Is it getting you to where you want to be? Because I've talked to many people about this, and I have never met anybody who's genuinely just got to that point and said, oh yeah, no, actually, Duncan, it's really helping me live the life I want to live. So you've got to ask, you know, whether it's true and whether it's serving you. And if it's not true and it's not serving you, chuck it in the bin, get rid of it. It's no good. So that's kind of like a real quick tour of how to get to grips with your beliefs. Once you've really worked on your beliefs, then you need to kind of manage the thought process, because you are still going to think about alcohol. So, I love American football. Absolutely, absolutely love it. Watch it every week. And I know that for many people, it's one of those things. Oh, the game is on, let's have a beer. Now, if you stop believing that alcohol enhances sport, it doesn't really matter, because when you know, when the title music starts playing and the sports on the TV, your brain is still going to go, oh, we should have a beer. We're watching football, So you've got to think, you've got to have a way of dealing with that thought process. And that's basically well, becoming aware that those thoughts are going to happen. There are going to be triggers for those thoughts. They're going to be things like football, things like dinner, things like arguments. There's going to be a lot of them. So there's a little bit of a physical component, but that does it. It's not really the main problem. Mostly they're situations, people, places, emotions and feelings and things like that. But it doesn't really matter what causes it. Whenever you get that kind of "I want a drink" thought, then you need to think something different. Now, I, tend to work with people, lots of different mantras that they could use. One of the ones I use most commonly is "Real Men Quit." I do that partly because it's the name of my book, but also because it's, a nice kind of positive thing to say. So as soon as you get that thought about having a drink, you kind of think to yourself, "Oh, real men quit." And you have a bit of a smile, that creates a celebration, and that helps to turn it into a system. It helps to kind of drive that behavior, because celebration is a great way of driving behavior. If you enjoy it, you do it, don't you? If it is fun, it gets done. So once you've kind of like become aware of those triggers, change the action. So instead of having a beer, you're thinking "Real Men Quit" or a mantra that you like, something like that, and then you're celebrating. That manages the thought process. Once you've done that, honestly, the behavior is the easy bit. So you've got to do the beliefs and then the thoughts, and then the behavior follows. Don't try and do it the other way around, though. I've met a lot of people who try to do the behaviors and hope the thoughts and the beliefs catch up. Sadly, they tend not to.
Yeah, they just transfer to something else or get worse. Yeah. So let's do this. We talked about lies, right? Just from your experience personally with the people you work with, somebody has the lie, man, I get so stressed in public situations. Alcohol helps me relax. What's an alternative you'd recommend for that?
So I I would advocate kind of rethinking it, reframing it. So the other day I was at a networking event, and I don't know about you, but I'm not mad keen on networking. It's something that's important. I've made some really great contacts, business out of it, partnerships. It's important, but I'm not going to tell you that I enjoy it. And I went into the room, and I knew a few people there, but you could just tell by looking at them, they were having those kind of intense conversations. They didn't want me to interrupt. And there was a few people that I didn't really know, and I was a bit nervous. So I went over and I made myself a cup of tea. And whilst I was making a cup of tea, I sort of like looked around the room, and I rethought it a little bit, and I relaxed a little bit and had a sip of my tea, and then went and just thought, oh, I'll go and talk to somebody. Now, listening to that story, I doubt any of your listeners are thinking to themselves, "Wow, tea, yeah, that is absolutely the thing to remove nervousness in social situations. I need to drink 6 pints of tea every night." However, if you tell that story and you use the word alcohol instead of tea, people think, "Oh, yeah, the alcohol's really helping me." But it's not the alcohol that helps you. It's the fact that you've just relaxed because you've been there a little bit longer and you've kind of got into it. Because that's what happens in social situations. We are nervous at the start and we relax into it. And that's true of adults. It's true of kids as well. I mean, you just go to any kid's party anytime. They'll always be really nervous at the start, won't they? They'll all be like huddling around the edge, holding on to mummy's leg or whatever. 5 minutes later, they're destroying the place, aren't they? They're playing who can tear the radiator off the wall quickest. And it's just a natural human reaction to be nervous at the start of the event, but those nerves will go. You will get over it. You will just kind of relax into it. You'll find someone to talk to. You'll be absolutely fine. The thing is, you don't actually need anything to help you with that. The alcohol never helped you with that. The alcohol was just, there at the same time as this kind of natural process. So, I just go along, be brave, have a cup of tea.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And then other lies that are super, like, people get in their head, and it's straight from Satan. They're like, man, nobody likes me unless I'm drunk. Like, how do you deal with that in your circle?
Yeah, so look, I mean, this is a very common one. I think a lot of people are really nervous that they're not going to be fun and nobody's going to want to spend any time with them. And look, I don't think it would be fair to say, well, look, you won't ever get any pushback from anybody if you stop drinking, or choose not to drink on one occasion even. Yeah, some people will make a big deal of it, but honestly, I think they'll change their mind fairly quickly. I think what you is that you, you go out and you enjoy yourself. And if you go out and enjoy yourself, people still want to spend time with you because you're enjoyable, and you're interesting and you're fun. And you were like that before you started drinking. The fact that you've stopped drinking is not going to change that. If anything, it's going to make you more interesting because, well, honestly, have you ever talked to someone who's drunk? They're really boring. They repeat themselves. They talk too loud. They make jokes that aren't funny. Then they repeat themselves some more. They're just like deathly boring people. The most boring time I've ever had is in a room full of very drunk people, because like being drunk does not enhance your ability to have fun. It does not make you a more interesting person. You just don't notice how bad you are because you're drunk. And if everybody else is around you is drunk, then they don't notice either.
Yeah. And if
But
they're
generally,
laughing,
so
if they're
much more
laughing,
fun.
they're normally laughing at you because you're making a fool out of yourself, and they're laughing at you at your expense. And then the other thing is, a lot of times people are just belligerent a-holes when they're drunk, and they think they're charming people, and everybody's like, what an a-hole. Like, they don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, I'll be honest with you. That was on more than one occasions. That was probably me. I thought I was being the most amazing person ever, but no, I was just being yeah, yes, an a-hole. We'll go with that. And look, I mean, I think that's one of the worst things about alcohol. It doesn't help you be more yourself. It kind of masks who you really are. It robs you of authentic contact with people. I've done some stuff that I really, really regret. I feel bad about, and being drunk was not an excuse, but I wouldn't have done that sober. No way I would have done that sober. That's not me. And I like now that I am always able to behave in a way that really, is congruent. It resonates. It's authentic. It is actually me.
Yeah, and I love that you're not only sharing transparently, Duncan, but everything you're saying lines up with scripture. The Bible says wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. It's just saying, like, if you drink and get drunk, you're mocking yourself. And the alcohol is just going to cause you problems and ruin your life. And if you're doing it, you're a fool. Like, there's no reason to be getting drunk. So thank you for talking about this. So between your birth and this point in your life we're discussing, where you're waking up and realizing, I don't need alcohol, is there anything we missed, Duncan, before we transition to that point to where you are today?
So I mean, one of the things that comes up quite a lot when people talk about alcohol is this kind of idea of unprocessed trauma and difficult times. And look, I'm not going to turn around and tell you that I've had the charmed life. I've had some difficult moments. I mean, the thing that really kind of prompted me to stop drinking was my wife and I. We wanted to take it to the next level. We were very serious and committed. So we thought, oh, let's start a family. It's the thing to do. And um, we were kind of quite happy and quite optimistic, and it all seemed to be going very well until my wife had a miscarriage, and then it all completely and utterly fell apart. And look, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, that was very hard on her. And what made it worse was I just wasn't there for her. I wasn't, around to help her the way that I should have done, because at the time my way of dealing with stress was to get drunk. My way of dealing with difficult emotions was just to pour myself into a bottle of wine, and that really did not help. That just made it a whole lot worse for her. And I think, a lot of people connect drinking with the difficult events like that. For me, that one was a catalyst to stop, rather than anything else. And I think there's a bit of a, I don't know, some people kind of make too much of a deal about it. It's like, well, I can't have a problem with drinking because I didn't have a difficult childhood, or, I've not had any serious trauma in my life. But the research that we've done, talking to people, and asking them the reason why they think they got into difficulty with drinking, yeah, there is a lot of trauma, particularly connected with childhood, that you do see in people that have drinking problems. And then there are traumatic events in adulthood, which often kind of set off an increase in drinking. But not everybody talks about that. If you've just had a good life, but you started drinking early and you were exposed to it a lot when you were young, and you drank a lot, particularly before the age of 25, you drank heavily before then, you don't need any kind of like traumatic events in your life. You don't need anything difficult to set it off. So if you're worried, but you're kind of saying, well, it can't be me, I can't have a problem because I don't fit the kind of typical mold of what we think of as a problem drinker, like, forget that. Just judge yourself for where you are. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. And if you're worried about it, honestly, there are a lot of people out there that want to help you.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Not comparing and judging yourself where you are, because you can change it from alcoholism to gambling addiction to food addiction. So I had a conversation with someone, and it was like if somebody was gambling 2 or 3 times a week and they lost $10,000, the first thing people say is you have a problem. But if that person was gambling 2 to 3 times a week and they had to go and they won $10,000, they still have a problem. They just happen to be on the other side. So you could be a functional addict. You could be doing great in life. And not everybody is a legitimate addict. They use it as a crutch. They use it as a tool. It still doesn't make it right. It still hurts your life. But, an addiction means you have to have it. Some people could stop, but they choose not to, or they stop for a while. That's why it's great to see your life that you stopped. And have you had any relapses, or have you just been clean since you made that decision, Duncan?
No, I think, using that process that I talked about, for removing all of those beliefs, uh, was the moment I stopped drinking. I didn't want to drink anymore. I had no desire to do it again. I knew that it wasn't going to help me at all. It wasn't going to make my life better. It wasn't going to relax me or help me socialize or deal with my stress. So when anything difficult happens, my brain doesn't say anymore, oh, let's have a drink, so no, I didn't have any relapses. Although, I mean, in fairness, I there were a couple of points where I tried to kind of control my drinking, and there were a couple of points where I tried to cut back a lot, and that didn't really work. So since I got it right, I haven't had any relapses. But it took me a couple of goes to get where I was, and that's not unusual. And people do kind of get disheartened sometimes when they have relapses. But the thing I think it's most important to realize is you got to make a distinction between a lapse, which is just well, you just had something to drink, but you didn't go revert back to your kind of previous behaviors, that really can just be a lesson where you learn something. That can just be a slip, and that can teach you something. And I've met plenty of people who are like that, where they mucked it up a little bit, and they come back and we have a conversation about it, and we kind of help them to think through it and understand it, and kind of go back through the process and make sure that they've got everything right. And then that can be a really, really valuable lesson. So it's not always a bad thing to have a little bit of a lapse, shall we say. Well, the analogy I often use with people is like, did you pass your driving test first time? Because I certainly didn't. It took me 3 goes to pass my driving test. Not everybody passes it first time. Sometimes you've almost just got to stuff it up a little bit, learn a lesson, and that makes it solid the next time. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm lucky. I think the other thing it's worth pointing out is a lot of people take it for granted that what they have around them, but I am very lucky in as far as, my wife has been a great support to me, and she is stuck by me despite the fact that I was a complete idiot at points. And I'm lucky I've got some really good friends who are very understanding, very close with my parents. They live in the same town as I do, very involved in my community. So I've got a lot of support around me, which made it easier for me. And not everybody has that. And I think if you kind of just look at me and go, well, Duncan found it easy, it must be easy. It's like, well, yeah, but I had a lot of stuff going for me. And if you don't necessarily have that in place, then it is going to be harder.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, so before you and your wife experienced the miscarriage, was alcohol not getting in the way of your marriage, or it just wasn't to that point? It was kind of brush it under the rug, ignore it.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, looking back on it, it obviously was, but at the time, it didn't really seem like it, because it was just, well, that was our relationship. We came into our relationship and we were who we were, and I was drinking, um and I can see it a lot more now looking back on it, because I think I have uh I have grown an awful lot since I stopped drinking. I mean, it's 9.5 years now, so a lot has happened, and I like to think I have improved my emotional intelligence quite significantly in those 9.5 years. So I can sort of see the things that I was doing that weren't very healthy and weren't helpful for our relationship. And like I say, I am very lucky that I have such a wonderful and understanding wife who could see past it all, and she never really gave me a hard time about it. She always just kind of nudged me in the right direction. Um, but yeah, I mean, looking back at the way that we used to interact, I think if we'd continued to do that, we wouldn't still be married today. So I'm incredibly pleased that we've managed to, find the way through, not simply drinking and miscarriages, but all the other problems that you have in life. And we've found a point where we're in quite a good place. And I'm very, very happily married. And I'm really aware that, like, stuff is going to change, and you get into these nice little rhythms, don't you? You get into this nice little groove, and you're thinking it's all going really, really well, and then stuff changes, and you have to figure it out all over again. But at the moment, our relationship's in an amazing place. So
Oh yeah, and I'm not trying to get you where you're not, or trying to get. It's not like this isn't a tabloid show where we're trying to get dirt out, but we're trying to be real and transparent, because normally if people are an alcoholic, they got real issues in their marriage. So, what did your wife socially drink? Not drink at all? Did she drink heavy? When you guys were going through that, where was she in the spectrum?
so my wife was never really a big drinker, and she's not now. I mean, she drinks once a week, and it's when we have dinner with my parents. And my parents are a bad influence on my wife. I don't think she would drink at all if it wasn't for them. Um, no, that's probably not fair. But I mean, we went to a wedding, in the summer, and she had one drink, and that I think is typical of her. And I think she is one of the people that I know, and I don't know that many of them, but she's one of the people that I know that I think really drink in a low risk way. Now, there is no way to drink without risk. Alcohol is a toxin, it's carcinogenic, and it's addictive. So there is always a risk to drinking it. However, there is a low risk way of drinking, and she does that. So I can't argue with her drinking. She never drinks more than one drink. She never drinks more than twice a week, and she never drinks more than 3 weeks a month. So that kind of 1, 2, 3, never more than one drink, never more than twice a week, never more than 3 times a month. That, I think, if you look at the science, that really is the easiest way to drink at this kind of low risk level. Give your body a bit of a break. Make sure that you're not causing any serious negative effects. And honestly, I think if you do that, you actually enjoy it more. I
Yeah.
think that low risk drinking is far more pleasant than any other form of drinking. I think, and again, the science is pretty clear on this. I mean, we understand the effect that rising blood alcohol levels have on you. And actually, if you look at all of the pleasure, it comes from the first drink. We always chase that pleasure with the second and the third and the fourth, and that's when you start to get into the serious negative effects.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm always err on the side of caution, just stay away from it, but people are going to make their own decisions. And then the reason why I'm glad, thanks for talking with your wife a little bit, is just because it sounds like she is a grounded, stabilizing force in your life, and that helped you to have that. Because, sometimes you could have a person who's fine and another person who's fine, but when they get together, they are not fine. They contribute to the worst parts of each other. And it doesn't matter if it's alcohol, drugs, eating, or just physical crime. But when it comes to alcoholism and knowing you had a stable wife, that's fantastic because she helped you. So, where's Duncan today? Where are you headed next, my friend?
So at the moment, well, I just started. I'm doing a collaboration. My next book is with a friend of mine who is a magician, fire eater, entertainer, and juggler extraordinaire. And we're doing a book. Its working title is "Juggle Yourself Productive." But it's about the myriad productivity and well-being benefits of juggling, which I am super excited about because I've been a juggler for my whole life, but strictly amateur, just for kind of fun. And it is a really exciting project. I think it's going to be excellent. So I'm doing the bulk of the writing. He's doing the bulk of the thinking. So I think I've got the easy bit. We just started on that. That's really, really good. Next year, I'm going to break the world record for the longest Morris dance, the Morris dancing marathon, which often leads to two questions. The first being why, and the second being what the heck is Morris dancing? And I have a feeling you're nodding to the second one, right?
Yeah, start with the second. What is Morris dancing and why break the record? I think it's cool. I always wanted to be in the Guinness Book when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well,
As
it's
an adult, too, I
ironic.
think it would be cool.
Yeah, it's ironic, really, that it's named after an alcohol company, isn't it? I mean, it's just because back in the day they used to sponsor it. They don't anymore, but they haven't changed the name. Anyway, that's an aside. So, what's Morris dancing? Well, it's kind of English folk dancing. It's sort of traditional. If you think of like your pretty village green, you're kind of like slightly Downton Abbey sort of a view. You and then stick some people in it. They're all dressed in white, got ribbons, got hats with flowers on, waving hankies, dancing around to traditional English folk music. That's Morris dancing. And yeah, I've been dancing for about 20 years now, but I absolutely love it. And yeah, the funny thing is, I was just talking to some marathon runners that I know, some ultra marathon people, some triathletes, and I was thinking, I want to do something big. I want to do some endurance thing, but I don't just want to do something boring. I've got to do something that's slightly more interesting. So I thought, right, that particular record is there for the taking, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm gonna attempt to Morris dance about 30 miles. That's the aim.
Nice, man. Well, keep us posted. We'll put an update in the website and the blog and the podcast.
Thank
So
you.
between the birth of Duncan and today, is there anything we missed in your story that you want to cover, or any final thoughts about, we start off, we said, if people listen, this is going to be about changing behavior. Any other big tips? You're like, hey, if you want to change your behavior, try this, this, and this.
I think the one thing that we haven't really talked about is my daughter. I mentioned, that my wife and I were trying to start a family, and we had the miscarriage, and it was really really hard. And I guess the flip side is the good news that almost exactly 9 months to the day after I stopped drinking, our daughter was born, and I mean she's fantastic. I love her to bits. She's absolutely amazing, and it's one of the things that I hear a lot around alcohol. I, a lot of people they stop drinking, um, either like I did, in the run up to starting a family and building a family, or when their kids are kind of young, or sometimes when their kids are getting to the point where their children are starting to become aware of what's going on. Or actually, a good friend of mine, Dave, um, his daughter videoed him when he was drunk and showed him the next day, and that was what motivated him to stop drinking. So it is something that is often tied up with starting a family, or helping, you know. Be that kind of role model, be the example that you want to be to your children. And I think that hits at something very important, not just around alcohol, but around all behavior change. Motivation is so important. You've got to know why you're doing something, and you've got to actually, you know, you've got to be you've got to enjoy the process. So yeah, look, there's a big why for me. Why do I want to do a Morris? Oh yeah, I want to be in the Guinness Book of Records. Yeah, it sounds good, doesn't it? But actually, that's probably not enough, is it? I mean, it'll get you started, but what keeps you doing it is just enjoying the process. So weird as it sounds, I do actually quite like running, and that's kind of evolving now into long distance dancing. But I started running just to get my fitness kind of up and my endurance where it needed to be. And I just the process. And I think if you can enjoy the process, then you will always continue those behaviors. If you are just looking, off to something in the future, that might get you started, but it probably won't sustain it. And that's why the family thing is such a great form of motivation, because you can see it every day. You can just be that little bit better every day, do it for the kids, see the effect that it has, and I think that's one of the things that I would love to get across to people. But having that motivation that can help you enjoy the process and just do it every day, that makes such a big difference, whether you're building a good habit or breaking a bad one.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Duncan, what's the best way to reach out?
Well, I'd like to give your listeners a little gift. So my first book was called Get Over Indulgence. Actually, it wasn't my first book. I wrote some other ones about local government that aren't very interesting, but we'll ignore that. Get Over Indulgence. I'd love to offer them a copy of that. If they put getover.uk, that's getover.uk, into their favorite search engine, that'll take them to a bit of my website. You can download a copy of the book from there, have a little read. It's kind of gentle. I don't want to, look, you might learn something from it, but I don't want to detract from the fact that it's just an interesting story and there are jokes. It is basically my story of going from drinking too much and eating junk food and smoking and just generally living a life that was not what I wanted, to all of the energy, the focus, the health, the happiness, the joy, and the love and all of that. And like you say, it's just a nice little story. I don't want to put you off by saying you'll learn something. Yeah, that's Get Over Indulgence. So put getover.uk into the internet, and that will take you to that bit of my website. You can download the book, but you can also find out the rest of the stuff we do is on there. We're pretty busy on various social media platforms, particularly LinkedIn. So, connect with me. You hook up with, ask me a question. Like seriously, send me a message, ask me a question. I might not be able to help, but I guarantee if I can't help, I will know somebody who can. So please reach out if you've got any questions, or if you need anything, please just let me know.
Yeah. And like always, we'll put links in the show notes. Thank you, Duncan, for that special offer. And ladies and gentlemen, don't just listen to great content that Duncan brought you. Like our slogan says, listen to it, do it, repeat the good each day, form those habits Duncan's talking about, so you can have a great life in this world, but more importantly, an eternity to come. It's a lot longer than 80 years on average, right? So Duncan, thank you so much for being with us today, brother. I really appreciate having you here, and I know our listeners did too. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And, I hope all the listeners can jump on their favorite podcast platform and give you a 5-star review, help you share all of the wonderful work that you do and get your messages out there as well.
Oh, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. Share this with your friends and family who need it. Reach out to Duncan, continue the conversation, shop our affiliate sponsors because they're supporting us. We can bring this great content to you for free. And other than that, we love you. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.
The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat. For life. The Remarkable People Podcast.